I'm going to tell you about Antarctica and the whales and penguins that I bumped into during a trip there in early 2018. I took off from Portland and flew to Atlanta and then overnight to Buenos Aires. In Buenos Aires, I got some last-minute supplies and took in some tango and the sights, and then I got on another plane to fly an hour and a half south. Patagonia and its snow-capped peaks looked spectacular from the plane. I landed in Ushuaia, the city at the end of the world. A lot of travelers book a year or so in ahead, but you can also pick up last-minute trips. Mine was pretty last minute. I stayed at Posada del Fin del Mundo. It's a real homey place with a chocolate lab and great cooking. Then I headed to the docks to catch the Hebridean Sky. It's a 3,000-ton ship, almost as long as a football field, with 7 decks, holds about 100 passengers. I checked out my single cabin and we started cruising through the calm Beagle Channel toward the Drake Passage, notorious for some of the world's roughest seas. I was really worried about this 2-day crossing because I thought I would be terribly seasick, but an ear patch did the trick. The Drake takes 2 days to cross, and we could see a storm in orange outlined on the weather map, but the captain was confident that we would cross before the storm hit. And so I was able to settle in and enjoy the food, which was quite amazing, and begin getting to know some of my fellow travelers. They included a couple from Concord, Mass. On the left, and an Irish-Australian backpacking couple across from me, and Suzanne, the ship's doctor. They also included a wonderful Israeli family, a retired fighter pilot and diplomat, and his daughter and grandson. This couple has plenty of reason to stretch because they motorcycled all the way down from Denver. Passengers came from all over the world, including this young woman from New Zealand and Karen from Seattle. During the crossing, we saw some petrels with 6-foot wingspans, and we listened to lectures on the wildlife and on photography from a professional photographer who was kind of a coach for us on board. On the 3rd day, we began seeing icebergs. We headed into Le Maire Channel, which was choked with ice. In fact, it was a little dicey as to whether we'd make it through at all. We were the first ship to attempt to make it through that season, and apparently it's quite tricky for the captain to navigate. We began seeing seals. Temperatures were in the 30s. It was summer in Antarctica during January, and so the days are about 20 hours long. We began doing landings. We'd always step through disinfectant on the way out to avoid contaminating anything on land. The company tossed in the red parkas, and they also outfitted us with good insulated rubber boots for the landings. One thing that's incredible about Antarctica is just the way the birds and animals have no reason to fear humans. So you can walk right up to a penguin colony and watch the penguins rearranging the pebbles in their nests and strutting around, and they really don't have any reason to walk away or pay attention to you. I have to say I had really underestimated penguins before this trip. They're really remarkable. The way they have to go way up high on a hill to find rocks that have melted off early in the season. And then that means that they have to strut awkwardly or toboggan down to the water where they're suddenly really graceful. And they do their fishing there, and then they bring their food back up for their young, which they take care of in pairs. This penguin almost seemed to be welcoming us when we showed up. Penguins travel up and down the hills on penguin highways, and we tried very hard to stay on our own highways, although sometimes I think we overlapped. But they were very patient with us and went about their business. Here's a couple that's come down from their nest to take a swim. We were lucky. The weather turned gorgeous. We began seeing whales. These are orcas. Sometimes we just get in the zodiacs and float around through the spectacular ice. And it was during one of those voyages that for me the highlight of the trip occurred. We saw some minke whales and they came over toward us. One of the whales got close enough to touch and kept playing alongside our boat, going back and forth between the two zodiacs. I put down my 600mm lens and just hung on tight to the iPhone, hoping I wouldn't fall in.
Going your way.
The kayakers got some close encounters too. Some people had GoPro cameras on rods and they stuck them down in the water and you can see the whale underneath. Then the whale that had been playing around near us came back over to the main ship and stuck around as the crew began putting away the zodiacs. A couple of times, the whale went right underneath the ship. Another incredible thrill was seeing a humpback whale, and some of us with long lenses got close-up shots that we then sent in to an organization called happywhale.com that actually let us name it. We kind of like the abstract markings, so that whale is now called Pollock. The people who showed us all this included Nate here, the expedition chief from Canada, and Falcon Scott. He's interesting because he is grandson of Scott, the famous explorer. This is Jeff from Canada, and this is Marty, the head penguin keeper at the Sydney Zoo. Here's Ashley from Canada, and Suzanne again, the ship's doctor, and this is Randy from the Czech Republic, the ship's musician. This is Pablo from Ushuaia, and this is Maria, a Canadian who lives in New Zealand, and she led citizen science in which we were able to help collect readings on temperature and turbidity and other aspects that would be then crowdsourced and sent in to scientists who are studying Antarctica. This is 10,000-year-old ice. It's compressed from beneath a glacier. We didn't see many other ships, but we saw these two sailboats. Imagine what crossing Drake Passage would be like on those. We saw different kinds of seals. These ones are southern elephant seals. They weigh about 4 tons each. They can dive for about 2 hours at a time down thousands of feet to eat fish and squid. Leopard seals look deceptively sweet and happy, but they can actually attack zodiacs, and they eat penguins, other seals, and krill. We saw remnants of the old whaling days, including this old boat and some big tanks where they used to store the whale oil. I was struck by how pristine Antarctica is. I never saw a speck of litter. The expedition leader told me that a while back somebody spotted a bottle cap in a penguin's nest, and it just about caused an international incident as they tried to figure out who was responsible. One just stunning evening as we were preparing to let people off to go camping, they put on a barbecue on one of the top decks with an amazing backdrop of glaciers. On Deception Island, I went for a hike with some others up a mountain. We came back and discovered that people were heading in for their polar plunge. For some reason, I didn't see a need to do that, but they had a lot of fun. This is a drone that Pablo had a license to operate. It's pretty rare to be able to put one up over Antarctica, but he just got some incredible footage, and I thought I'd let that run for a little bit until we wrap it up.
Smelling the air as a dripping rose. Another soul to meet my boy there. A Bennington bear that's made of gold. A physical kiss is nothing without it. And you close your eyes to see what it's done. The body that lies is built up on looking, 'cause all that remains before it's begun. Gotta know, I'm feeling love, made it go. I'll never love her, another love, another you. It's gotta be love and said it. You gotta know, I'm feeling love. Another one, another you. It's gotta be love and said it. My heart will swell before it's hardened. With a flick of the hair, it can make you old. Another hole to dig my soul in. I'll leave anything there that keeps me sore. A physical kiss is nothing without it. You close your eyes to see what it's done.
This is a spectacular campsite where people pitched tents for one night. They said they had glaciers calving huge icebergs that kept them up, but it looked kind of like it would have been fun. I was too late in booking to sign up for that or the kayaking. Right toward the end of our voyage, there were dolphin off the bow. They were beautiful. Here's Nate, the expedition chief, posing with all of us, and here I am with a fellow Scotsman wearing his kilt, and here's a couple who got engaged during the voyage.